My big learning moment as a tutor was came upon me by accident really. I was teaching a module called Negotiation, and at the beginning of it, in the launch lecture, I invited students to negotiate with me about their hand-in days. They had 2 pieces of coursework to do. And they thought about it for a moment, and there was an early bid for why don't we hand everything in at the end, so they could, this is a final year level 6 second semester module. And they said week 13-14, can we hand it in then? And I said no, and this was my demonstration of asymmetric power in a negotiation, where one person has all the power and the other side have none. And I said what you really need to do is understand some theory and practice of negotiation, and then maybe what we should do is try the negotiation again a little later on, maybe week 4, week 5. And that's what we did. And really it was just from my point of view, it was just a flippant remark, but it became an important learning point for me about student feedback, and because of what happened in the next negotiation. There's 2 generic types of negotiation. One is positional bargaining, which is the trading that we all think of when we think of negotiation, and the other one, which is the one that we promote as part of the project management MSc, is to do with interest-based negotiation. Interest-based negotiation from a couple of Americans called Fisher and Urey came up with the idea of win-win. What if we just negotiate on the interests involved, they said. So what you do then is each side looks at their interests, and you become in effect joint problem solvers in an interest-based negotiation, and you don't compromise, and everybody gets ideally what they want. What you do, what happens is you become more creative. What happened for us in this negotiation was that students were talking about when they should hand in to begin with, and what I said is, well, my interest as a tutor is getting some feedback out to you from the first assignment to inform the second assignment, because that way I can get involved in helping you perform better. And actually that's their interest as well. They're interested in making sure that they get feedback which can help them do that, and not just in this module but in other things that they're doing at the same time as well. So it could have helped their academic writing in their dissertation, for instance. So in this particular problem, our interests completely coincide, and students didn't take any time at all in convincing of that. What might be surprising, I know what this surprised me first time round, although on reflection it didn't ought to have done really, is that they say they quickly started to look at 2 aspects to feedback really. One is, how soon can I get that feedback, therefore how early can we collectively as a class decide to complete our first piece of coursework. And secondly, I need future focused feedback that's going to help me with my other assignments. That was really useful to me, because it helped me as a tutor think about what we were going to do with that feedback. So here we are talking now with students about the detail of what their feedback specification is, and they are asking for all the things that we as academics would have them ask for. They're also suggesting that they hand in their first piece of work to facilitate that as early as possible. And this is the big surprise. The class starts to talk to itself about how early can we do a reasonable piece of work which gives us time to use the feedback. And also into that mix I'm throwing feed forward stuff. This is what happened last year, this is what people got wrong last year. So we're bringing an incredible amount of focus to first learning and secondly feedback about writing assignments. Generally speaking, the way it turns out is students seek to hand in somewhere between week 6 and 8, depending on when Easter lies. As a tutor, I end up being obliged to make a commitment to a rapid turnaround about very specific future focused feedback, and we're all under a little bit pressure, but we're all highly motivated towards doing it because we're all in it together, and it's a very nice outcome to that, and it doesn't feel like the normal slog that it might otherwise do. I've done this a number of years now. Each time it turns out in the same way. Each time I'm a little bit surprised that students campaign for handing in things too early. I'm almost the calming voice in that, saying, let's not hand it in quite so early. You've still got to do a nice piece of your first work, but the location of Easter usually helps sort that out. What's really nice about this whole experience for me is that it helps me take the student's part in understanding my role as tutor in providing them feedback which is of use to them. It's also very nice to know that, given the opportunity to negotiate around this, students will negotiate for early feedback and they'll negotiate and use that feedback in a way that we would have expected them to, we would have wanted them to use it as academics, and that to me is quite a nice outcome.